Hello, my name is Alvin S. I'm an author living in Detroit, Michigan. The book that I wrote a few years ago was Guns, Drugs, Gangs, and Anger, Killing the Ones We Love. It's a memoir that I wrote, and when I did begin writing it almost 10 years ago, I never thought there would be another heroin epidemic uh, at that time. Uh, this book deals with reincarnating our youth from the street mentality of killing one another to learning how to resolve our issues without all of the guns and violence. But also what it does too, in the first 8 chapters, it can really help those who have become addicted to opiates such as heroin. Uh, the reason that I'm doing this book is because, or should I say this video, is because we have not really seen the heroin epidemic uh, that we will see in the next few years. Uh, Going back to the time when I first became addicted myself in the early 70s, I learned that over time what really happened is that heroin was dropped in to the communities that were most incited into riots, those who were demonstrating for civil rights and things of that matter. Myself, I was drawn into it uh, through the acts of not only using but selling and then using and whatnot. The difference between yesterday and today is that while heroin was really like dropped in to the African American community, it became an epidemic once it crossed boundaries and went into our Caucasian neighborhoods. The epidemic that we had back then, we really never totally recuperated from, and now we're facing another one. Today, things are a lot different than they used to be. Back then, we, as drug dealers, we would use the cuts on the drugs, such as lactose, which is nothing more than a powdered sugar. They use baby formula. Uh, at that time, back in that day, though we were all fools for using drugs and things of that nature in the beginning. I mean, just, we were crazy, but we did things. And there's one thing about it, we could trust one another. And today, things have taken quite a change. One of the things that I want to do first, I need to point out what opiates and heroin is as opposed to drugs like cocaine. It's comparable to the amphetamine pills and barbiturate pills. Um, Unlike yesterday with the bomb being dropped on us, many of the people today are becoming addicted to opiates because of getting and taking pills that are opiates and taking more than what the doctor prescribes. Me, myself, having gone through an opiate addiction, I suffered a back injury years later, and I was prescribed opiate pills, which were Vicodin. And I took those Vicodin for approximately 5 years. But the first time I took one, I realized how much it reminded me of the heroin that I used to consume years earlier, and I knew at that point that I would never become addicted to them. So one of the first things that anyone taking prescription medication should understand and know that you should only take what the doctor prescribes. That's where the problem comes in, is when people take more than what the doctor prescribes. So you have to use those type of medications when you need them as opposed to taking them when you want them. That's what starts the addiction. And one thing that I've learned in my life when it comes to pills, there's nothing worse of an addiction than a pill addiction. Pills are bad. Pills, when you're talking about an addiction, is really no difference between the pills and the heroin. I don't know which is worse. So taking what the doctor prescribes is number one. And when you're taking strong opiates, only take what you have to take. It's not about getting high, it's about getting rid of the pain. So we have to understand that. That's how we get addicted and messed up in the first place. Another thing about today is that what's different is that people don't care. People sell heroin today are not like the people that sold heroin 30 years ago. You see, today people really don't care about you. They don't care what you consume and what you put in your body, if it kills you or not. As long as they get your money, that's all they're concerned about.
Powering off.
So you have to really be conscious of what you're doing and who you're dealing with. Best thing I can tell you, don't deal at all. Heroin is the worst addiction you can get. Opiates. Back in the day, we had uppers and downers. We had the Seacos and Debs. We were up talking 24 hours almost. We take a couple of those things. Then you had the barbiturates, which were called the downers. Opiates are just downers. But when you get involved with the opiates, they're more addictive than those amphetamines. Today, the products, the things that we used to cut heroin back in the day aren't available anymore. And I wonder, and I think sometimes when I've asked the question, well, what will they do? What are they going to cut these drugs with? And recently I found out not only are they using fentanyl, cofentanyl, all that stuff, but they're also using meat tenderizer to cut the heroin and for you to consume. And for many who have already gotten years into their addiction and become those who shoot the heroin, you might be shooting meat tenderized. And that's the truth. Another thing that bothers me is the attitudes of many when I've discussed or started talking about heroin, especially in the African American community. A couple of years ago, I went on the other side of 8 Mile with my white neighbors, and I found out just how much of an epidemic this thing has become. Many of these people that I've talked to have lost children from heroin overdoses. But not only is it because of the heroin, it's because of what they putting on it. I come back here across 8 Mile, come back on this side to talk to my people and trying to let them know that the king is on his way back. Everybody look at me like, oh, we don't do that type of thing around here. We don't, we don't, because y'all don't know heroin. It's only a matter of time. Back in the day, you could tell a heroin addict half the time because he has gone from the snorter, now they smoke it and shoot it and everything else, but at that time in the 70s it was snorting. That's how everybody first got hooked, snorting. Most black people didn't shoot drugs until they got to the point where they couldn't afford it, so they got what we call mixed jive. And that mixed jive was a combination of lactose, Dorman, and quinine. Dorman was a sleeping aid, and that sleeping aid was used along with the cut. Though it was all killer stuff, but it wasn't a killer like cofentanyl, which is probably 100 times stronger than fentanyl, which is an animal tranquilizer, bear, giraffes, and all of the biggest animals that need to be tranquilized. In the day, the drug dealer is putting this in your drugs. Meat tenderizer, cofentanyl. From what I'm understanding now, they got more additives in the doggone, way far more additives than they do actual drugs. They even make it synthetic heroin. I'm glad I got out of that years ago. Because what I hear now still, what I heard the other day when I was at a meeting is that a lady was speaking about some of the senior citizens in the neighborhood that were going to the methadone clinics. First thing I said, those are the addicts and the junkies and whatnot from the 70s. Once you get hooked on that stuff, it's hard to get away. Sometimes people kill themselves. So hard to get away. I got away. How did I get away? Tell you right here. Order you one. Go to Amazon.com. You can always hit me up at woodsalvin@rocketmail.com. woodsalvin@rocketmail.com, and I'll send you one. There is redemption. There's a way to get out of that. But what's going to happen, for what I can see right now, because in this African American community, with this nonchalant attitude is that we don't do this, well, it's only a matter of time, because see, black folks always been the drug dealers. The white folks deal on big scale. They get to us, we deal on small scale, then we sell it back to them. It's been the same game 30, 40 years. Yeah, and they lock us up. They bring it in. They get to us. So many of us get to, so many of us go to jail and get, it's a system that keep going and going and going. We can't see it, but you take the average old drug dealer, if you find one my age that done made it this long and then made it, I'll tell you, any drug dealer tell you, well, you ask him a question, what's the worst thing you hate about what you did? He gonna tell you, was selling that shit to my people. I done heard it once, and I heard it twice, and I heard it a number of times. So for all my brothers out there, just thinking about selling some heroin, better think twice. It's poison. Don't do it to anybody. Your people, those people, any people. Heroin is a loser. You might make a few dollars, but trust me, somebody who's been there, done that, the only people that ever survived and made it in the dope game were those who didn't use their drugs. And so many people started out not using their drugs. But things happen. And then they wind up becoming addicted. And then it's a vicious cycle. Goes on and on and on and on. It's a deadly cycle, should I say. So we may wonder what we can do about the heroin epidemic or whatnot. And I would say, whether it's drugs, heroin epidemic, or sex, the best thing you can do for your young people is educate them and be real. The only people that's going to educate our young people are the parents and those in the community. They're not going to do it in the schools. I talked to some DEA agents the other day. I was talking with the feds. They told me they can't even get into school. They got a hell of a video out now. Chasing the Dragon. Hell of a video. They can't even get into school. The kids need to see this. And parents, you gotta educate your kids. You don't know what to tell them. Hey, once again, here's one book right here. Y'all that got young fellas and nephews and sons, and even some of y'all that got husbands that think they nickel slick. Heroin, losing game. Many play, but few win.